I want to remind us that we are going with the name Hot Takes, tantaMAS Hot Takes. This is just an opportunity for us to give our hot take on what some of the stuff is that goes through leadership or transformation, and to be candid and open and fun and messy and to dive into that. So, but I want to start with I want to ask everybody, I want to give you each an opportunity to talk into who you are and what your give is today, what you're bringing to this, what your intention is, whatever that looks like. Take a moment or two to just land on that. I'm just going to start in the top corner. So Bill gets to be first.
Awesome. I love being first. I love being first. Hey, everyone. Bill Monroe here. I was coached in HCL 39. I am an analyzing supporter. I'm also an open, courageous, loving man. Yes, I am. And courageous was a big word for me that I learned and really came to surface about me in my operating style because I am a huge supporter. That is a lot of the energy that I lived with in my life. That was my style from how I came into this world. And bringing courage into my being was a shift. And that was a courage to ask, a courage to request things from people, a courage to say no to people. And so that was a huge shift for me in the operating style. And I'm here because I think these operating styles are hugely powerful because they give you a structure by which you can assess communications and connect with people more strongly by understanding how they hear you when you're speaking and what you should be hearing when they're speaking. So it's a pleasure to be here, Daryl, on Hot Takes.
All right, thanks, Bill. All right, Jen.
Belle, you're such a hard act to follow. I love it. And thank you for kicking us off with such great energy. My name is Jen Gonzaga. I completed my work back in 2003. I am LV39 out of Las Vegas. And Bill, I'm going to follow your lead. I am a passionate, strong, loving woman. And my stretch for within that word, thank you, I know, was actually bringing out my passion and giving it to the world and in the evolution of who I've become because 2003 fast forward, what is that? Somebody do the math for me. 21 years. Oh my God.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Um sorry, that just had to register really quick. It's just been something that is a constant challenge, but something that I embrace every time I go through it. And my operating style is a controlling analyzer. So when I have the word loving in there, it gets to not be from a controlling place. It gets to be from a connected, present, calm, loving, um, compassionate. These are all the things that I've got to learn through how I get to passionately show up about what I'm committed to. And the analyzer side of it really is about what does that really get to look like? How does that get to sound? And questioning if my actions are also aligning with how I want to show up. And I will honestly tell you, even though I might have done this work all those years, there's been lots of messy moments that also have been wonderful lessons to then reevaluate and reassess who I get to still become. And it's been beautiful. And where that really comes alive is as a parent of three. But more into that as we get into these hot takes. So anyways, I'll pass the mic.
So real quick, Jen, as
Yeah.
quick as you can. Why are you here? What is your intention today?
I mean, so we are all graduates of this work, and it's just a joy that we are taking this opportunity to come back and give back to this community, but also to presence with those who are not familiar with this work. A simple concept that I believe will benefit everyone, regardless of this is something you're familiar with or not. So I think a lot of us might be familiar with things like DISC or Enneagram or whatever some of these maybe more trendier or more familiar type of operating systems and ways of understanding ourselves are. But the one that we have today, I think, is a really simple concept that even if it's, again, you're not in this work, you can relate to And we just want to be able to, and I want to be able to bring that alive to show you what is possible from what you get to learn about yourselves and others and who you can still become as a result of what you finally know, or will
Well,
still
great.
find out to know.
I'm glad because I'm going to ask you in a little
Yeah.
bit to actually
Okay.
walk us through this and ground us on this concept. So
No problem.
hold all of that because that's going to be fun
Okay.
to have you do it. All right,
Fantastic.
Monica, you're next. Who are you? What are you bringing today? Take it wherever you would like to take it in that regard. I'll give you a few moments.
Thank you. Well, hello to all of those who are either watching us or hearing us. Welcome to the space of tantaMAS and all this hot stuff that we get to talk about as we are sitting around this imaginary round table. And I am somebody who brings the spice to things, knowing my operating style, and that I will let you discover what it is as we go through it. And who am I? I am a powerful, connected, committed leader. I done my work in so many ways, and HCL13 was the start point of that. And then it followed a few years where I was fully in it without even realizing. And so it became my life. And I am a coach, I am a facilitator, I am a transformational leadership full believer. And that's why I'm here today, because in some ways, flexing in and through different styles has really given me the opportunity to be a bigger influencer on the things that I know matter in the world. And I really want everybody to connect with the power of these styles, notice which ones are benefiting when, and really be able to leverage the gifts that are in them. And yeah, in us being a community that is really here to help us practice the best self in every moment, even if it gets to look messy and different every moment. That's who I am.
Every time. Yes, thank you. And yes, the gifts are the beautiful part of that. So we'll actually wrap up today and talk a little bit about those. I want to give everybody that opportunity to lean into that. So thank you. All right, Eddie, jump on. Who are
Hi,
you? What do you
everyone.
want to, what's your intention today?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Eddie Kolar. I originally petitioned this to be hot takes and spicy cakes, but we're only going to stick with hot takes.
Well,
Yeah, so
no. Let's do the spiciness, because please don't deny me.
there we go. Yeah, who am I? I am a courageous, connected, open leader. I went through transformational leadership 4 years ago, HCL 14. What do I do in the world? I build stuff. One of the things I do is a software developer. So I interact with people a lot, and understanding personality styles has helped me interact with my team, with our clients, our customers. I also run men's groups, men's coaching. So understanding how to speak to men, and just listening to them and understanding when I speak to them, how to do that in a way that resonates with their style. When it comes to operating styles, I'll say for myself that I show up as an analyzer. I don't say that I am an analyzer, and later we'll get into my intentionality around phrasing it that way. My give today is I love being practical, and with all tools, I love applying them and also letting go of them sometimes, because they're useful to use and they're also useful to let go of and live
Amen.
life.
Amen. Thank you. All right, I'll go real quick. I am Daryl Tomich. My give. So I will start with my contract. I am a joyful, courageous, loving man. I assessed as a supporting analyzer. And I'm all of them. So just like Eddie shared and you guys, and we'll talk more into, I am all of them all the time. So I am a joyful, courageous, loving man. So when I look at my operating style, I go that one of the games I actually play is put love in there, right? Controlling love, analyzing love, promoting love, supporting love, And when I do that for myself, it brings me back to both my contract and my operating style. So my intention here today is for us to look at what's out there, start where we came from out of leadership, and then break all the rules to it. I want us to ground it and then throw it out the window. So that is my deep intention today, as the little heretic in me likes to say. Let's not do it that way. So, with that said, Jen, I'd love for you to just ground us on the concept of operating style, how you understand it to be, how you understand the purpose of it in this. I know there's not a lot of time to ground on that, but I want to make sure people have a basic understanding of it as we move into the next part of what we're here to do today. Did she freeze?
He certainly did.
Of course she froze.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. It's perfect. So I'll jump in. So as I understand the operating styles and why we use them in the container,
Okay.
is I think Bill
Okay.
touched on this a little bit, is to be able to talk to one another, see one another, hear from
I think there
Oh,
is.
she's gone.
All right. It looks like she jumped out and she'll be back. So
Yeah.
all right. So it's so that we have a place to talk from. We have an understanding of how we move, how we do the things we do, and then to be able to recognize the person across from us and how they do the things they do. That's a way oversimplification of this, but I believe that's why it's introduced the way it is, and why we use it during practice to have this understanding for the people in the room, the power teams, who we are and who we're in relationship to, and why I think it's so valuable in that space. So I know that's really loosey-goosey, and I know it's a big, high overview, but I think we're going to dig through some of that in the next hour or so, and it'll be perfect. We're trusting that whoever's watching this has an understanding, and if not, please reach out. So, all right, Monica, what's coming up for you? I'd love to at this point just hear whatever's coming up for you as we dive into this.
You know, what's coming up for me is a gratitude for my understanding of who I am and who I pretended to be. And I am a promoter naturally. And I, for a long time, believed that something else is more important. And therefore, I embraced being an analyzer as my way of being. And I lost my vivaciousness and my ability to actually generate what I was capable of. And as a result, I was burnt out. That's in my past career as a consultant. And looking back at how much I gained out of really leaning in the styles and how do each of us see the world, what matters most, and what are the questions we in subconscious ask ourselves in those moments, and what we need in order to bring our gifts to the table, make me really appreciate my husband when he is in his supporter, because then I actually notice that we attracted each other and we actually are a team because we are so different. And it makes me appreciate that and give him what he needs as a supporter in order to be able to play in the playground as the promoter that I am.
I love it because it's just like Shelly and I and the spaces we go and how we accentuate one another. So, all right. So I want to ground us real quick. I know we're waiting for Jen to rejoin us. I want to take the next little bit of time as if we were just hanging out, if we were at dinner, and just talk through some things. But I would love to, a couple of things that I would really love to see if we can get through is, what is your understanding of what's underneath our operating style? What influences it? Whether it's your natural one, whether it's your highest scoring one, and we can talk through some of those nuances as well. The other one is the style flexing piece, and we can kind of take our time to get through this, but style flexing, what Monica was speaking into is understanding how she's showing up in the moment and what she has access to. Maybe she gets a call on her supporter, and maybe her husband has been able to reflect some of that. And she's like, wow, I get to access that part of me. And then the last one I really want to dive into is how that works for enrolling yourself back in your vision, enrolling others into their vision for their life, and having those conversations. I know enrollment's a big part of transformation for a lot of us, but to really dive into that. So, with that said, as we I'm holding space for Jen to just pop back into the dinner table at any time. Bill, I'll let you start us off. I'd love to hear what your understanding of the operating styles and what's underneath them, what influences them, just for
Sure,
yourself. And
absolutely.
maybe it's something that came up in coaching or whatever.
So if I think about myself, and before I became a part of leadership training, and I look back at the way I showed up in the world. I want to be careful. I want to be very careful to say my personality, because these aren't personalities. And Eddie, I know that's a spot for you. They aren't. It's how we come across. And what's interesting is, for me, it's where I'm comfortable coming across. I didn't realize it before leadership, but my supporter energy showed up throughout my life as I like to be the guy behind the scenes. I enjoy enabling other people and watching them succeed. Here she comes. Oh, I put my hand up. I like to be, I'll have to remember that my motions are on, or they're suddenly working. I like to be the person behind the scenes. So I would operate in my role as a business leader on an executive team, backing up the CEO, standing behind the CEO, supporting the CEO. And rarely did I ever step up and take the lead on something. And I was completely unaware I was doing it. And it wasn't until I ran into a very strong controller head of sales, and he and I banged heads. I wanted some effect there. Banged heads, because he saw me as weak, wishy-washy, not understanding who I was. And I couldn't communicate with him effectively, because he expected me to stand up and speak just like him. He wanted to be heard just like him. And that's when it dawned on me, there was a real communication connection here. I mean, we just weren't even in the same room. And I remember the CEO, who I was pretty close to, saying to me, I don't understand it. He's a great sales guy. He's a good friend of mine. You're a great marketing guy. You're a good friend of mine. How come you guys can't stand each other? So now fast forward to, I finished HCL 26 and we're in operating systems with Michael Strasser. And I'm like, the light goes boom. Oh my goodness. I had no idea. And so the whole concept was very new to me. And being able to see that with clarity at that very moment, as we went through the operating systems, was huge, because for me, I realized I was very comfortable playing a role, and I had no recognition I was playing it. And if I was going to truly be a successful leader in my work, in my family and everything, I was going to have to be able to play multiple roles, not just the supporter role. And that was the gift for me. But the thing that was so valuable to me to understand was my operating system of supporter energy was the way I was comfortable showing up in the world for my entire life. And what's under that is, I'm a middle son. I'm a middle boy, right? Who grew up with a very, very powerful mom, a very powerful older sister, and a very promoting younger sister. And so my goal to grow up was to stay out of trouble, stay out of the limelight, sit behind everyone, and if I wanted to get my sisters, I'd do it by putting them against each other, and if they got me overtly, I'd get them, and so this worked out to be my whole operating style. And that's where it came from, and that's what's under it for me.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And I want to thank you, Jen, for coming back and showing back up. I grounded this a little bit, but I want to give you this opportunity to talk into what you hear Bill saying. And the reason why is because your informing, right, is controller, right? Is part of that. If I remember correctly from the beginning of this, but like, what comes up for you when you hear Bill have that aha about him and the sales guy? And how does that show up for you and when you come across supporters?
Wow. Well, that has shown up for me throughout my career until I also went through my own transformation. So I could definitely relate to Bill very well. I tend to work really well under like somebody who wants to be in the limelight, but needs somebody in the background to kind of run the show and make sure everything works. So being a controlling analyzer, that's probably a really good fit for maybe roles that I have also even sought out for, because that dynamic is just critical in their success, but also making sure everything in the background's peachy keen. But I think what stood out for me and what Bill actually said is, okay, so he's a middle child. I'm the oldest. So there was culturally an expectation placed upon me about how I needed to show up, how I needed to behave, how I got to be the role model. And there were certain non-negotiables about some of that, like just in who I was. And so I think about how that maybe even reinforced, especially under a very authoritative parent and one who was like compassionate but unwilling to stand in their power, and yet control, actually ran the whole show. So, but the dynamic of what stood out for me when Bill was talking about that was how that helped also reinforce who I became. So Eddie alluded to this earlier about it's not the only person we are, and I think we're going to end up becoming into, or going into that conversation. But there's a place where when I also took this, I was like, oh, that's why. And then later on, it's like, well, yeah, I can see how that got reinforced. And as I wanted to pursue other things in life, it couldn't only be what I knew. And I remember one of my coaches saying, Kelly Lee, I love you. She was like, sometimes your box is, sometimes you're going to eventually grow out of your box, your comfort zone of your box. And when you get to that point, you're going to find yourself fighting for wanting everything to be based off of what you know, but it's about what's outside of that is where your next growth lies. And so I think about that, and I know earlier you're asking me why am I here or whatever, so I sent you guys all the message, but I'll just share this out there too, is like I just finished my dissertation, and it's actually about this work, right? Not specifically about the operating styles, but about people choosing to develop their leadership and why that matters to them and how that has contributed to them. But in these stories that we're all here sharing today, I think that's such a relevant topic that doesn't always get talked about. So I'm so excited that this is like a hot take that we're jumping into right away, because we all have our own version of that story. We are all our own box definers, and we all have an opportunity to bust up that box as well. And if you haven't yet given yourself that permission to do that, permission granted. There, I'll just say that.
Now's the time.
Yes.
I love
Permission
that.
granted. Yeah. If I had a wand, that's what this is. Okay, go ahead.
So, and you weren't in the room, but I was grounding us on the operating styles being how we do things in the world, right? And I love that you brought in some of the influence, parental influences, where we are, middle kid, first kid, all the things, and the comfort zone piece, right? One of the things I don't hear us talk about a lot is understanding that high score is where you're the most safe and comfortable. And so often we want to embrace that, like, oh, this is who I am. You're like, stop, listen, this is where you're safe and comfortable. Is safe and comfortable really getting things done? Is safe and comfortable really highlighting your relationship? Is safe and comfortable really moving your life towards your vision? And a lot of times we go, safe and comfortable actually keeps me safe and comfortable. I'm not doing a damn thing, right? And then the style flexing gets to come in. But before we get to style flexing, I would love Eddie's take on these influences, right? These, because we have this conversation a lot of times with regard to how we were brought up, where we were brought up, right? Being in Europe versus America, like so many different generationally. So take a few minutes, Eddie, and walk us through some of what that looks like from your perspective.
Let me begin by saying that the map is not the territory. when it comes to this mental model of thinking of personality, it's a useful tool. It doesn't describe, it describes something, but it's not it. It's just a tool. The way I see personality, environmental factors, how we grew up, cultural factors. I notice a tendency, my family's from Slovakia, and I notice that there's like cultural influences on the way people show up. And I think, Monica, you can also speak into this in terms of the European versus or Eastern European versus the Western European American kind of influences. I'm going to go as far as saying that I also believe, from my experience, that things like past life, there's something from a past life. I'm going to bring in a little bit outside of the scope, but to consider the fact that what goes into who we be is much more complex, and that to hold loosely the operating styles, I see it as verbing, not as nouning. I'm not an analyzer. I analyze. I scored initially as a analyzing supporter, but I know that I also support people. And when I retook it, when I staffed, I showed up as a controlling analyzer. So sometimes I get to be in that more directing, controlling energy. And that shift in the language is useful to me because that's like, who do I get to be? I know that maybe my natural tendency is to analyze and could tell you that, oh, I grew up in a volatile environment as a kid, as an only child. So I had to rely heavily on analyzing to understand what was going on in my environment. So those are some of the things that come to mind when I think about and describe, the personality styles and what goes into a personality. I think there's a bigger topic about personality because we have East versus West in terms of theory of mind and theory of personality, but I'll leave it there for now to see where this takes us.
But real quick, say what you started with about the map. I want to make sure we capture that for good.
Yes, the map is not the terrain. It's not the territory. It is a useful descriptor that can guide us. It's kind of like, let's say types of maps also are good to explain here. When I'm driving, I just need to know the roads, right? I just need to know what roads, where to get myself. Now, when I'm hiking, I'm probably going to need a map that tells me the elevation change, because 500 feet on a map isn't the same on a flat area versus when I'm looking at the mountains here, right here in the Rockies, right? So it the right type of map for the right purpose gets you where you need to be going.
Yes, and that's the different matrices. So thank you. And this moves us into the great next piece of this. And I want Monica to talk into this a little bit for us. Style flexing, right? We talk a lot about unconscious style flexing, natural style flexing, conscious style flexing, where we literally practice that. And whatever lands for you, Monica, take us into style flexing. I know you tapped into a little bit earlier with talking about your husband and his supporter and the reflection of that. But take us through some of that style flexing piece and how you've utilized it, how you coach it, what's come up for you around it, and take us on in that space.
Big question, Daryl. So it's like thank you for speaking into this, because it's really changed my life in so many ways. Because once I understood what I need in order to trust and open up and be natural, it allowed me then to really see the person next to me and their own needs. And I, as a promoter, I need to feel that I am free, that I have choice. And when that occurs, I can give you and I can lift the world with me. But when I feel cornered in, then I start to be in a fight or flight mode. And then I become constrained. And then until I have the sense that I can be free, I'm disconnected from what is going on. So me understanding what my tendencies are and what I'm looking in order to build trust and connection with the others, then allowed me to actually source that for myself and meet the person and make them feel seen and supported, so that truly connect about what we are meant to connect in that moment, whether it's having fun, whether it's supporting each other, whether it is having a brainstorming about the next way to save the world, which is what I was living in for a long time, in my sustainability. So I'm not sure if I'm answering in the way you want it. It's really go ahead.
Here's what's coming up for me, right? Is that we're having this beautiful conversation about operating styles, and you lean into how I want it. I literally I have no agenda. I just want to see what comes up for you. And is that part of the operating style, right? We talk about stressors influencing this. We talk about tension or influencing it. Being in some growth mindset where you're like, let's go, right? So what when you say, when you're in your head and you're going, am I doing it right? Am I answering it right? What operating style do you think you're in that moment? Because you
Oh, thank you for that question, and thank you for seeing me, because this is what I am in constant inner questioning, whether am I adding enough value? And that when I'm asking, is this what you're looking for? I want to make sure that I contribute as much as I can, and I'm in my analyzer doubting whether or not what I'm speaking into is valuable enough already. So that just shows you, and thank you for regrounding me into, I trust that what you are coming up with is exactly what's meant to be spoken into. And that allows me then, as the promoter, to really go into places and speak into what can bring more joy and more enthusiasm and more opening towards creativity and what we get to learn. Because this is what tantaMAS for me is: learning, and really learning in a way that's fun and supportive, without overlooking when we need to pause or when we need to take it slower, or like this beautiful combination of masculine and feminine energies that get to dance in a way that sometimes looks messy, sometimes looks pretty lean and
here's what I hear
comfortable.
you saying. We can add one more to the list of style flexing types, right? Embodied style flexing, right? What is my body inviting me into? So real quick, I want to do a quick exercise. I want everybody to close your eyes. I want you to tap into where you are right now. I'm going to call your name and I want you to find one or two words to tell me what energy is coming up for you right now. Don't get big on it. Don't analyze it. Just blurt it out. Eddie.
Grounded and heart-centered.
Thank you. Bill.
Focused and analyzing.
Sounds fun. Monica.
Right now, I am in the forest and wandering. So I'm in that discovery mode.
Wonderment is what I hear. All right, Jen, where are you at right now? One or two words.
Oh, nervous and excited, like the same thing.
All right. Thank you for playing along, all of you.
Well, where are you, Daryl? Can I ask you?
Playful and energized.
Wonderful, thank you.
So if you knew me, you would know, and my analyzer, I would want to just be overthinking all of this, right? So I get a style flex right now for this time together. I get to show up in my promoter. I get to show up in my controller and go, hey guys, we get to be on task, right? So natural style flexing and doing that piece of it. I want to talk a little bit about how style flexing impacts enrollment, but before we get there, I want to check back in with Monica on her answer real quick. We talked about safe and comfortable. And then you talked a little bit about my analyzer is asking if I'm bringing value to this. Is there something about feeling more safe or more comfortable that you've associated with value in that space? Why is that where you went? What came up for you? Can we see if there's a tie together for this for the audience?
Ooh, how much time do we have for this? Oh dear. the very short version of that answer would be, I learned in the world that I receive love and appreciation when my intellect is shining, when I am showing off my knowledge. And that I made up that because of my upbringing. And as a promoter, there was not enough substance. So if I wanted to succeed in life, I better get learning. My mom, God bless her, would invite me to, not invite me because she's a controller herself, a school principal for 30 years. So you can imagine how home felt like. And she would say, you have a choice. You either study or you're gonna end up cleaning the public toilets in the Central Park. Like there was no other way. My
Wow.
brothers were told that they're gonna be truck drivers unless they study. So, you know, then education became the only way, and it was quite dry and quiet. And then I noticed that when I was getting good marks, I was getting rewarded and I was getting appreciated. So I learned this is the way, this is the path. 20 years later, I'm not going to say how many master's programs, and I'm still feeling like, oh, am I adding enough value? When actually, my biggest value is in energy and in my wisdom. And whenever I choose that, I bring that. Whenever I'm doubting it, guess what? My analyzer comes and becomes really stressed out about whether there's enough. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, I love it. I love it. And the reason
No.
I ask is just like me. So I am a middle kid, but not only am I a middle kid, I'm a twin. So I learned right away when I first got to school that the thing that separated me from my twin brother, because we were always the twins, the boys, it was always like we might as well have been Siamese, right? But when I got to school, first of all, this is in the 70s, so we couldn't be in the same classroom. They didn't allow sisters and brothers in the same classrooms. But then I noticed that based on the grades I got, it was Daryl. It was my grade. It was my accolades. And I just hit the ground running with this. It's how I separated myself. But then what happened was I'd come home and my mom, being a supporter, was pretty sure that's her operating style. She would make sure that Dale didn't feel bad. My twin brother didn't feel bad about how he was showing up, right? So all the hard work I was doing at school got a little bit chopped down when I came home so that Dale didn't feel left out, right? So it was a little bit like doling the accomplishments, right? So how I show up in my accomplishments is much different because it's fueled by learning, but I share it differently because of that, right? And the reason I'm bringing that forward is I heard Monica talk about knowledge as if it came out of a book, and then I heard her share about wisdom as if it came out of her experiences in life, right? And understanding the power of that. So I wanted to see who would be a great person to tap into that. So I'm going to pick on Jen a little bit if you're open to it. Jen, for you, what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
Well, I think you summed it up really well. I think knowledge is the things that we learn about, or maybe from because somebody else said something or showed us a way or whatever. But wisdom is what comes up for us and how we either interpret that knowledge or choose our own interpretation of what it is, and what we've learned from that, and then expressing that and coming from that place as well. That's what stands out for me.
I'm gonna push it a little bit further if you're open to it.
Okay.
What do you believe Jen leans into more for herself? Do you rely more on knowledge? Do you rely more on wisdom?
I think initially knowledge, because very much like Monica, and even to what you shared, and I think this goes back to my upbringing as well, because as you guys were talking, what made me think about like, hey, I know how to stay out of trouble by getting the grades and doing the right things and behaving and all those things, right? So in a way, I think that's almost even a people pleaser type of way, right? And I think my wisdom got challenged because I didn't always know how to express myself. If you needed me to regurgitate and something I did a report on, no problem. There was a total comfort zone of that. but to even my point earlier when I was talking about the passion, I remember, you know, like in the leadership program, there's a point where, well, in my leadership, 'cause I don't think all of you had this, we used to do video coaching. And so I remember I was so nervous because I didn't like to, again, be seen. I didn't feel I expressed myself real well. And I knew it was going to be an opinion I needed to share. And I was saying my contract. And the question I got was, so what does passion mean to you? And I went straight into my head about like what I thought would be the definition of passion from the dictionary, right? And I'm like, I don't even know if that's correct. I'm like, why do I even have this word in my, you know? So, but like, that's what I needed to learn. I needed to learn from that point. And so, you know, fast forward a few years later, I remember being in Toastmasters, and there's for anyone who has not done Toastmasters yet, there's a segment typically in the way they run the meetings called table topics. And you need to answer a question and speak for at least a minute and express yourself based off of whatever that question was. And the one question I remember, and it took the room down, so I knew I was on the right track. And this is me talking from my wisdom, was, when do you feel you found your voice? And it was through my leadership program, because I realized how much I wasn't using it. I'm getting all choked up about it now, but it was really powerful. So yeah, and the wisdom, I think, is really coming from that heart, being vulnerable like I'm being right now, and leaning into it and owning it and knowing that's actually where strength lies. Yeah.
Love
Okay.
it.
Thank you for going there.
Yeah.
And here's why. It's because I don't experience you not in your wisdom. So the question that came up when you first start speaking, when you said initially knowledge. So initially knowledge, when I know people, I get to know them more, I'm sharing wisdom, or is that initially in my life and now I move more in my wisdom? Is there a little bit of both?
Yeah, I would say so, because, you know, I trusted a lot of that early on because I knew that was what was going to have me be accepted. So I'll say that. And it probably wasn't, but that's the story at least I made up and I believed. And now more so, I think, because I've practiced and am able to express myself and my ideas and my contributions and what I feel is valuable, and put that in space. To me, that maybe that can be construed as knowledge, but I'm also sharing my wisdom because those are the experiences that I learned from, that I feel would make a difference with whatever it is I might be up to or what we are up to collectively. And so, and you know, I even use that maybe sometimes as a differentiator when I'm helping my clients with, listen, like, stay in your zone of genius. Like, I got you. Like, I will take care of all the other stuff in the background. I need to lean in on you with what are the things that you need, but you need to go out there and not do my job, because otherwise you're paying both of us to do the same thing. You know, and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, you even told me like you don't want to do that. So like, stop doing my job, you know? So all joking aside, but you know, at the same time being real, I think that's where that wisdom and the knowledge sometimes can be, you know, look like a crossover.
Yes.
But it also has helped me define and own my strengths, and at the same time draw the boundaries around like honoring what I've been able to accomplish as a result of the wisdom that I have, that has come through all that experience as well.
Yeah, there's nothing, Daryl, there's nothing like taking 30 or 40 years of applying your knowledge in the world and learning from it to create wisdom.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the places I was going. For me, wisdom is applied knowledge. It really is. Like, I learned all these things. If I keep it to myself, literally there's no wisdom from Daryl in the world. But when I can lean into that and apply it, it becomes wisdom. As soon as I share it outside of me, I'm in my wisdom. At least that's the story I tell myself, that to invite me to go there.
And if I can jump there, when you said knowledge, it's learned and inner knowledge that is present for us in order to make our own take on it and share it as a wisdom, and wisdom for ourselves in guiding us forward, you know. And sitting here witnessing Jen sharing that with us was so powerful, because to me, she went through all 4 styles and then she landed in her heart, and then it really captivated. And your vulnerability is so sexy, beautiful. Like, it is just so attractive. Thank you for bringing us there, because that's what we get to model, is you went through your analyzing and making sure, am I saying the right thing? And then there was a bit of controller, and then was the supporter where you leaned in and then allowed to tap into your wisdom. So it's I know for me to tap into my wisdom, I get to be my promoter and not overthink it, because that's when it just flows. So to me, it's like, what is your alignment that allows you to be accessing those inner parts that otherwise you tend to really hold for yourself and not share?
Thank you. So here's what I'm going to do. I know I wanted the enrollment to be part of this conversation, but I think if you guys are open to it, I want to come back and do that another time. I love this space that we're in right now, and I want Bill to join in with this for an intention, because he brought that forward. You know, that 40 years of knowledge piece, right? So we talk about this a lot in the house, the difference between knowledge and knowing. Right. And that's some of what I heard Monica speaking into. So, Bill, without any context for that, what comes up for you when I ask you for yourself? What's the difference in your operating style, how you're moving the world, between knowledge and knowing?
Interesting question. Interesting question, because knowledge I can answer easily. Knowing is a much deeper place to go, right? Because knowing is, when I think of knowing, what comes up for me is it's got to be in your core, and it's got to be knowing in your core. And so for a lot of times, let me give you an example to make this more real. Let's say I'm working with a client, and we're working on creating a go-to-market plan. My knowledge will support them in how they should message the company, how they should go out and what events they should do, what sort of outbound marketing they should do, all that sort of stuff. That's all the practical pieces. But the knowing is deeper. It's more around their core value proposition. Does it feel right to me? Does it sound like it's going to land in the community? And I know that, or I don't. I'll either say to them, I love that message. That's going to work. You guys are going. All right. I feel it in my bones, in my gut. When I talk to my kids, the same thing. Dad, this is the path I want to take. This is what I want to create. And I'll have this knowing them, knowing their style, knowing their skills. I know inside they're going to succeed, and it's there, right? And so for me, knowing goes deeper than knowledge. Knowing is something that comes out from inside you, that kind of aligns this knowledge and this wisdom with your heart and your morals. And that becomes knowing. That's what comes up with me is the difference.
I love it. I love it. I want to give Eddie a chance to speak into this before I dive deep, because I know this is a thing that he's really passionate about. Is he already kind of talked into past lives and operating styles and like tying that together. But I want to give him an opportunity to speak into what Bill shared about feeling it in your bones, because he led us with breath work, and when we started this, and this is one of the things he does in the world. What comes up for you, Eddie, when you hear Bill talk about knowledge and knowing, and what would you want to add to that or bring to it?
Another dimension of information. So we have information, right? I have a book here, information, just data. When I read that information, there's a possibility of that becoming knowledge, meaning I have a certain knowing. Knowing, I mean, the root of knowledge comes from gnosis. And the knowing is actually a remembering. Some of the stuff that I study and some of the, I would say, traditions around the world that say that knowing is just a remembering of what we already know. It's already in us, in our field, in our awareness, in the universe. So for me, it's moving from information to knowledge, meaning like having a certain interaction with that information. And then the knowing is that remembering of that in myself. And then wisdom becomes that expression, that unfolding of that knowledge in my life.
Thank you. So the thing that came up for me was it's the difference between hearing a guitar played and seeing sheet music, right? I can see sheet music for that guitar, and it's not going to change. And it's there. The information's there. That knowledge is available. But to hear somebody play that music, and I now have it inside of my body, there's a knowing with that that's different, right? So that's what comes up for me. So I want to keep an eye on time. I want to honor everybody's time. And I want to, we could dive into this for hours.
Mhm.
So I'm glad we went where we went. But I want to give us each an opportunity to, first, I'm going to ask us to popcorn something. And this came up a little bit as everybody was talking through their little pieces and how we got here. But I want to throw a little bit of a, a grenade into the room. I want to talk about PTSD when it comes to operating styles, right? Most of us learn about it in the container. Most of us have energy around it. Um, I don't want to be really formal about it. I want to bloom the rooms, right? I've shifted from blowing the room up. I'm notorious for that to now we're going to bloom the room, right? This is an opportunity to just begin to let it go and let it just be free from you. But does anybody have something they want to bring to the conversation right now around whatever PTSD means for you and operating system? All right, I saw Bill's head first and then Monica. So have at it.
So look, in a little different angle of it. Even to this day, when I have to go head to head with a controller, I get scared shitless. The hair on the back of my neck stands up. I sweat. My heart starts beating. Even to this day, as much as I've done it, as much as I practice, I still have PTSD every time I have to go through and have that conversation. Can't escape it. Just have to keep being courageous.
I love it. I love it. Before Monica goes, I want to ask this, and don't answer it, just sit with it. Where are you a controller in your life? What part of your life are you a controller in, and can you find that? And I want to circle back around and hear what you're answering. Monica, share your PTSD story.
My PTSD story relates to the idea that I, as a promoter, want to have it easy, and I am very superficial. That's what I hear when people talk about, you're a promoter, you never can be on time. You like there's all these labels that already get put, and then I need to prove myself, that I am not that, because it's all the bad side that relates to a style. And luckily I'm a controller, so when I want things done, I just tap into that. But the PTSD is also, ooh, is this enough? Ooh, what if people discover this is all just the surface and there's nothing underneath it? And then guess what? The analyzer kicks in and says, Monica, you better get your shit. You cannot look stupid and you cannot be a fraud. So go back to the drawing board and learn a bit more, because that's what is going to make you and give you what you need.
Wow,
I'm
that
done.
sounds exhausting. All right, what about you, Eddie? You got one?
Oh man. Well, all right. So it starts with the promoting energy. When I am in my head analyzing and I'm in a particular state of being that is like counter to whatever the excitement is, I get really like it pisses me off because I am wherever I'm at and I'm like, no, I don't want your fucking joy. Don't get me too excited. And then I realize like, wow, that's the other side of the PTSD. It's actually inviting me back into my heart, into my body, and really to shift, to like look, to see the beauty in the energy and the excitement that maybe in that moment I want to be in my feels and I want to be stuck there, and yet I get to let go. And I mean, yeah, the other side of it also, Monica alluded to this. I want to be in a story around the superficiality, or like, well, that's just getting to the surface. You're not getting into the details. You're skipping over the important stuff. So I can be both ways about the PTSD, where I could see the gifts in it and really acknowledge, be that missing thing, while also the opposite side of like, oh, I get to, also bring that information and infuse that into the situation.
Oh, perfect segue. Perfect segue. So I want to take a minute each, and I'm gonna, whether you talk about the gifts of it or the gratitude of it, I want you to just have a minute to put that into the room. For gifts, I wanted to speak into it as if these are the things I give away from my operating style. If you're going to speak about gratitude, these are the things I take away from others' operating styles. So whatever that looks like for you, gifts and gratitude, I want you to take a minute or less to just dive into it.
Before we do that, there was a joke about analyzers being boring, and I don't remember it. Does anybody remember that one? Because now it triggered me. I
Monica,
got triggered.
Monica, what's the difference between an analyzer and a supporter? Analyzers know they're boring.
Oh, thank you for that. Is that true?
Boo!
Okay, now let's move to what they wanted. Sorry, I got to be my promoter and just, have my way ultimately.
No worries. I love it. So I know we didn't get to hear Jen's PTSD, so I'm going to start with her for gifts and gratitude. All right, take a minute. Whatever the gifts and gratitude are for it, whatever that phrase means for you, bring it to the room now.
Mhm. Okay, well, I mean, the gift in being a controlling analyzer is I always have my shit together, or at least I try to portray that. But I definitely keep a lot of that order, especially as a schedule manager and some other roles I've assumed in my household, for whether it's for my husband or my kids. It's always like it's a blessing and a curse, because I know that part of being that is enabling them, right? So while it is a gift, I know everything around that. It's teaching me things as well. In the gratitude of their trust, in the gratitude of their dependency, but appreciation of who I am, in the gratitude of knowing that they can count on me. So
Thank
I'll
you.
leave it at that.
That's profound. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Eddie, gifts and gratitude. Take a minute or less.
Yeah, so I'll go with the supporting analyzing energy that I bring. I'd say the gift there is gift of insight to the person or the moment, and gift of presence and groundedness that comes with that way of being in the world. The gratitude that I have is the ability to share that. I find, as you ask that and feeling into this, the gratitude to express myself in that way with others.
Thank you. All right, Bill. Gifts and gratitudes.
For me,
Minute or less.
the gift in analyzing supporter is the joy I get in empowering others, watching others be successful, supporting them on that path, and the joy I internally get from being able to give that to them and watching them succeed and seeing their joy. And so that works both ways, gift and gratitude. But then I receive huge amounts of gratitude from promoters. So it's interesting because if my analyzer was stronger, I'd be more like Eddie, but my supporter is really strong. And so therefore my angst is with controllers and my gift is from promoters, because I can suck their energy in and use it to empower myself. And I love having promoters with me so I can use their energy to empower me.
Oh, I love it. And that takes us to a completely different topic, maybe for our next episode. But yeah, and that for me, that's our human design. I wanted that literally screams your human design. All right, Monica, gratitudes and gifts.
The gratitude I feel for being a controlling promoter is I am responsible to bring the joy and to infuse optimism and positive energy so that we can see new possibilities. And the gratitude is towards the supporters who are always there telling me they love me no matter what happens, even if I succeed or not in my promoting endeavors, because I know that's who my husband is, and I love him because he's always there for me no matter whether or not I doubt myself.
I love that. So for me, all right, my supporting analyzer, the gift is, and this goes even taps into what you were sharing about your husband, is I believe anybody that's in my space with me, that I love and is dear and share space with me knows that they are both seen and heard. They are safe, and I see them as powerful. Those are essences that come from those two operating styles. And I like to think that they know I've already checked all the exits. Right? My analyzer knows how long we have till this place is closed, what's going to happen, right? So that's definitely the gift. The gratitude is I'm going to go to my partner Shelly and her promoter. She will not let me forget. Fuck, have some fun. Stop, dance, sing, wiggle a little bit, right? And brings me back to that. So that's my fullest gratitude in that space, is coming back to that. So we got a minute or so left. I want to come back to the question I asked Bill, and for me it's an empowerment question. Where in your life are you a controller, and how is it the most amazing, beautiful thing for you?
So I am a controller as a father. I'm a controller as a father. My mother was a controlling parent. She taught me to be a parent. And so subconsciously, that became an operating style in a certain instance that I operated with. And it was hugely valuable for me because I had to raise three boys basically as a single father for quite a long period of time. And so having that ability to be goal focused and make sure everything was in order, and it came across as getting up in the morning, getting them to school, going to work, getting home in time to coach soccer practice, getting them home and having dinner in the crock pot before so those controller things worked beautifully for me. And it was a wonderful gift to create a really special world for them when it was a pretty tough time for all of us.
Well, thank you. And the reason I wanted to tap into that, next time you're in the room with a controller, a salesperson, or whoever,
I don't think,
and your hair on the back of your neck standing up, you get to remember this version of you and lean into that. It's beautiful.
Oh, sure. It's that easy.
All right, guys. So thank you. I wanna tap into the jokes. Everybody got a few more minutes to have fun?
I actually have
let's
to jump.
bring those
I got a
jokes.
hard one, so let's do them quick because I'm on another call now, but I'll wait a sec.
You can go first then.
All right. Well, hey, this one's for Monica. Hey, Monica, what the salesperson says to the promoter, hey, this computer, Monica, is going to cut your workload by 50%. And what do you say? That's great. I'll take 2.
Or 3.
Or 3.
I love it. All right,
So
Bill.
true.
Thank you. And thank you for jumping in with us. Thank you for having this fun with us. We will see you on the other
Let's
side.
do it again
for
soon,
sure.
everyone. Love you all.
Love you.
All right. All right, Eddie.
All right.
Tell us
I'll
a
read
joke.
that. Yeah, I'll read this one. How do controllers traditionally greet each other? Hi, nice to meet you. I'm better than you.
It's so true. I feel it. I feel it.
Monica finding the truth in it. That's
All
hilarious.
right, Monica.
Okay, well, how can you tell if an analyzer has some promoter energy?
Ow.
He looks at your shoes when talking to you instead of looking at his own.
Boo. I resemble that remark.
I'm sorry for you guys.
All right, Jen.
I'm like, which ones are left? Okay. I'll just have to go with the one I'm both of. Okay.
Yes.
The controller says, the word impossible does not exist in my dictionary. The analyzer says, well, maybe you should have checked it first before buying it.
Do your thorough analysis.
Due diligence.
Exactly.
Yeah, would you have checked first, Jen? I'm sure you might have
No,
checked first.
I don't think so. I don't know. Depends on if I need what I needed the dictionary for. Maybe that's what it is.
Mm.
Different level of
You know,
analysis. Which
And-
map
and-
again, Eddie? Which map?
Right.
Depends. Where are you going?
And that's
All right.
really like for me, the gift, Daryl, of this beautiful hot take is really noticing that we are all of them and we get to tap into what's beneficial in the moment, given the interactions and what the environment is bringing us into. And we are capable of that. And the work that gets to be done is continuously being aware of what's at play. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can't say that I'm boring.
Well, when you're doing your breathing exercises, you're not, oh yeah, he's actually dancing. Yeah, okay. Of
Not
course,
now we
but
can't.
Eddie can enroll himself into being a promoter and being authentic at it.
All right, guys. Great job. Thank you all.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.